That's us.
Hello, Leslie and Stephen. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you
Yes, we
so much
do.
for having us.
You're
We know
welcome.
We're
that.
excited to hear about this book.
Yeah, tell us about your book before we get rolling into the encounters and experience that you guys have.
It's Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw, available on Amazon and Ingram. And we also we have a Instagram page I like to send people to share stories, share experiences.
All right, lay it on
That's
us.
at leslie.shaw.author. And we also have the Facebook page as well, and at the same handle.
And then, of course, the book too, whothearebook.com too.
Yeah, we have
the
a website at whothearebook.com.
We have quite a few tiles and quite a few stories that we also have on there that are not included in the book. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, nice.
So when did all this crazy experiences start? And was it with you, Stephen, that it started with, or?
Yeah, 3, right?
are we recording yet, or shall we just?
Yeah, we're recording.
We're recording.
Okay.
We're privately recording. No one else is.
Okay.
Okay.
We can edit
Well,
anything that you guys need us to,
well,
so don't worry
well,
about that.
for me, things started at the age of 3 that I remember very clearly. I do because I was a very sick. I was born sick. Okay, almost died a few times. I had to have my tonsils and adenoids taken out at the age of 2 on July 28th, 1962. So I came in with some health challenges, right? But I was told at a very early age that we had a family spirit guide called Old Glegley that was kind of had been with the family for a long time and helped people out. So I just like believed it like a 3-year old, right? Then at the age of 3, I would start to be visited by a two-legged being, kind of a small being that would jump on my chest and my stomach in the middle of the night. That was invisible, but wasn't a cat, wasn't a dog. I could tell that for one thing because number one, it was 2 legs, and it was invisible. So anyway, fast forwarding to the age of 8 years old, I was in a bunk bed. My brother, who was 6 years younger than me, he's no longer with us, but he was 6 years younger. He was on the bottom bunk, and I just rolled over again in the middle of the night, and I saw what I still to this day consider to be like little garden gnomes, about 1 to 1.5 feet tall, about 4 to 5 of them that were walking into our bedroom, and they were kind of shimmery. They were, I could definitely see them. I just looked at them and I was thinking, do I need to like clear my eyes? And I looked at them and they looked at me, and I got a little bit afraid, and I rolled over. So my brother, when he hit my age, he started sleeping for 2 full years in the closet. And I asked my brother, Philip, I said, why are you sleeping in the closet, Philip? He said, well, I'm afraid of the little men that come at night. And I believed him because that's what I had seen at his age.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was 11 years old, 1971, I saw my first UFO.
Actually, tell them about the one going down the hall. We haven't.
Oh, yes,
haven't
I
been
haven't
telling
talked
that
about
one.
that one yet, right? Let's say when I was in 1969, I had this experience where I heard some really unusual sounds in the living room of the house. So I got out of the bunk bed, and I was kind of creeping down slowly to the living room, and there's little light on in the
Kitchen.
the kitchen,
Like,
the kitchen, right? And my heart was pounding pretty hard, and I was literally really kind of fearful about what I was going to see. And I'm about to turn and into the living room, which was a right turn, and then I just black out. And next thing I know, I'm back in my bunk bed a few hours later, and with no recollection at all about what happened.
And we
then,
found this is the signature for the alien abduction
yes,
phenomenon.
it is.
The more
It's one of
research we
them.
did, I kept hearing, and then I saw something bizarre, and I was terrified by it. Even my heart is pounding, and
Yeah,
then they black out.
you don't black out when you have an adrenal experience.
Yeah.
I
It's,
mean, you
it's
don't.
not just falling asleep, that's for sure.
And then at 11, I saw my first UFO, which was about 9:30 at night, and I just was walking by the front door and I saw this large orange globe moving horizontally from south to north, pretty big actually, maybe about 1,000 feet in the air, and it kind of stopped, kind of paused, and just continued on going to the north at a very level, even pace, not any fast pace at all.
And it was
Just
silent.
it was
No
silent,
noise,
yes. And I called Griffith Park Observatory the next day about that next night, and they said, well, young man, we don't have our satellites pointed in that direction.
Telescope.
So, I kind of like chalked it up as something that was an oddity. But, some people have given me criticism like, why don't we remember exactly how old you were and what time it was and what exact day it was?
Because you're
Well,
a child, right?
It's like, there were a lot of other things going on in my life. So, but anyway, and then, then the real signature that happened that the whole family experienced was in January of 1979. For the people that want to know, that occurred in two different locations that were 350 miles apart. One house, my dad was a master cabinet maker, and I was also a cabinet maker, not like he was, but anyway. So we were working together, and we were building a house up in the lower Sierras of California. And my dad and I were working the business in Fallbrook, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. So my dad, my sister, and I were all living together, and my brother and my mom were living at the house in Sonora, California.
Just temporary separation, because
temporary separation.
The Phillips school had started early.
So the first night of these weirdisms happened, where my dad came to breakfast and said that, Stephen, my my closet doors opened and closed on me last night, and I just wrote it off. It's like, oh, it's probably a dream.
They all shrugged it off, yeah.
The next night, I gave my dad a book to read. I was starting to study Tai Chi, and I was very much into Paramahansa Yogananda. So, anyways, I gave him this book to read. I thought it was interesting, and half an hour later, he came back into my room about, again, 9:30 at night, and he had this weird look on his face. And, Stephen, I'm hearing a silver bell in the living room. And my being a lifelong musician, I know what a silver bell sounds like. So I went in there with him, and sure enough, there was a silver bell being rung, ding, 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 that was in the wall next to the fireplace. And of course, first thing we do, being carpenters and cabinet makers, we looked up the flue, and we couldn't see anything, trying to make sense of it. Then we got my sister, who was 13 at the time, and she came into the living room and she said, "Where's that bell coming from?" So then we pounded on the wall, and it lasted for a good 15 minutes, and then it just stopped. The next morning, it was our typical thing to call my mom and my brother before my brother went to school every single day, because we're 350 miles apart. And my mom said to my dad, said, "Jeffrey, the weirdest thing happened last night about 9 o'clock. I was, drifting off a little bit, and I heard this bell." And I thought, well, that's got to be the phone. So she picked up the phone, and there was this baritone voice, a man's voice on the other side, saying, "I am the invisible Beachy," or something like that.
We still don't know what that means.
I don't know what the hell that was about. But the spirit guide that's been with the family for 4 generations is called O'Glegley. So maybe she misheard it. So then I guess what? I asked my brother. I said, "Philip, did the phone ring?" He said, "No, Stephen, the phone didn't ring, but she did pick up the phone, and she was talking to somebody." So this happened at exactly the same time when we were hearing the silver bell. The next night, I was sleeping in my bedroom, and I was awakened by a whizzing sound in the air, like a whoosh, whoosh. And I thought, well, maybe it's a bug or something like that, right? And so I tried to go back to sleep, and then the bed is pushed from the base of the bed, from where my feet are. This a gentle push, push, and I'm thinking, oh well, maybe it's an earthquake or something like that. Southern California. Try to ignore it, and then push, push, a little stronger, and then push, push, a lot stronger. And I'm getting annoyed and scared at the same time, and I'm starting to think, like, what is going on? And then I get 3 taps on my deltoid, my right deltoid, in the middle of the deltoid. Tap, tap, tap. Just like an index finger of a human being. And at this point, I think, is somebody playing a joke on me? And so I twirled around real quick onto my right side. I said, "What?" And there is this shimmery image that I'm seeing. I can't quite see the face, but I'm awake and I'm annoyed. I'm in adrenal mode. And then I black out. I told my dad and my sister in the morning, and they don't know what the heck to think. So, anyway, the next night, I decided I'm not sleeping in that bedroom again. Okay, I'm just not sleeping in that bedroom. So I decided to wear my work clothes from the day before, my, carpenters, cabinet makers work clothes, and I went to bed and I fell asleep on the couch in the living room. And I woke up about 5:30 in the morning. Again, this is January, so it was dark. Looked at my piano, think about what music I was going to play that day, and I listened to the little fountain in the other room. So I was awake, not sleep paralysis as some people think. Okay, behind me was the front door, which was about 25 feet behind my head. I was sleeping face up. And this blue, white, skinny, 6.5 foot tall, I'm guessing, entity just floated, walked over to me covered the 25 feet in about 1.5 to 2 seconds, bringing with it blue white light. The whole house was filled with blue white light. Stopped by my right side, and the whole right side of my body became paralyzed. Not in a scary way, but I couldn't move it. My right eye was already open, but I couldn't close my right eye. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to see old Glegley, the family spirit guide. I said, I'm going to see him. Only a few people have seen him, but I'm going to see him. But the other part of me, the logical part of my brain saying, dude, you can't move. You are paralyzed. You can't do anything if you wanted to. So, anyways, this entity bent down to me and whispered in my ear, not in my head, but in my ear, said, "Hi, Steve." In kind of I couldn't tell where it was male or female
But like
voice.
a friendly whisper.
Kind of a friendly
sort of.
whisper. And I'm thinking, God, I just want to see your face. I want to talk to you. And I guess it perceived that I was like maybe a little bit too scared. Anybody would be scared, being paralyzed, right? And then after about 5 or 10 seconds, it left. Again, I told my dad and my
But
sister.
you blacked out right
I blacked
after.
out. Yes, I
Yeah.
blacked out. I told my dad and my dad and my sister at breakfast. Anyways, fast forwarding 6 hours later, 11:30 in the morning, my dad and I are getting hungry, and so I said, "Oh, I'll go down to Jack in the Box and get some food." Right. So I pulled all the coins out of my pocket, put them on the counter, and kid you not, all the coins were magnetic. Okay, that's the best way I can describe it. I could pick up the coins from the side, from the edge. These are all the standard American coins, 1979. My dad could do the same thing. And this was 6 hours after I had this episode where I blacked out. And then the final night, I have absolutely no memory of, but my dad does. What happened the last night is that he saw this wall of blue white light that was just enclosing my bedroom door because we had a hallway between both our bedrooms. And so he had the bedroom door open and he saw this blue white light. And he used to be a cop in England. He was a bobby for 4 years and he was also in the Royal Air Force. So he's like kind of was no nonsense, what's all this thing kind of guys, right? So he said, I'm gonna get up and see what the hell is going on, right? And so he's getting out of bed, and this voice, this time inside his head, said, Jeffrey, just go back to sleep. Everything's fine, nothing to worry about. And that's exactly what he did. And you know what? I have absolutely no memory of that at all. He has the memory, I don't.
And then his brother, these incidents frequently came in clusters. His brother Philip had an incident of 3, and the first night he was awakened by these 2 white lights shining in his bedroom window.
1982 when he was 16.
He was 16 years old, and his bedroom overlooked a drop-off, so these lights would have had to have been floating up about 40 feet in the air. And there was nothing back there, no roads, just a hill with trees. So it couldn't have been cars in the distance. And he was staring at them, trying to figure out what they were, and then he blacked out. And then the second night, he was laying in bed, and he heard some scrabbling sound on the floor, and he thought it was the cat. And he reached down to pet the cat, but then a hand grabbed his wrist, and he felt this thrill of terror, and then instantly blacked out. And then the third night is this is when the family finally saw the face of their abductors.
Yes.
And he woke in the middle of the night and looked at the bedroom door, and in his door frame was a one of the tall grays.
6.5 feet tall, skinny, and
the big black eyes, the gray skin, the bald hair, the head, the grays.
Yeah,
what we all know as
we've
the
gotten some
grays.
flack, from people that have been like seeing our documentary and say, well, like why did he sleep in this? Well, my brother was 6'3" at 16 years of age. He was a big guy. He was we grew up in a very, so
And
anyway, so
they had so many experiences.
yeah,
It
exactly.
was just one more, really, for how. And frequently we've learned with our research is that people will sometimes remember little bits and pieces of their abductions,
Yes.
but they hardly ever can remember the face of their abductors. It's like they tamper with that memory particularly. And that's when the family kept describing these memories as being kind of shimmery. And I think the shimmery stuff is the sign of their tampering. Like when the boys saw the gnomes, they were kind of shimmery. And later, Irene saw them as Chinese people, again, kind of shimmery.
And
And
then my uncle Douglas, his life was actually saved when he was in the RAF just post World War II when he was stationed in Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka. And again, it was the same thing: a tall, skinny, 6.5 foot entity. This time it was dark, wearing a hat, and told him to get out of the barracks that he was in because they were about to be attacked by a raiding party. And that's exactly what he did. He got out. About a minute and a half later, a raiding party came through with machetes and guns and killed several of the officers. So it's like this is spanned not just the Shaws, it spanned the Rose, the Newmans, the Griffiths. This has been
it's been with the family for many
years. It's been
years.
with the family for a while, and it's not that anyway.
It comes from a very psychic family. The women for the past 4 generations have been automatic writers. Where you go into a trance and in this case, old Glegley would communicate, the messages he wanted to communicate, and they would just write them down.
Frequently, it's like you don't have a choice.
Yeah, they feel compelled to do it.
Yeah, I do it with music. I feel compelled to write music, and it's just like something. So I don't like doing automatic writing.
Yeah,
I've tried it.
It creeps him out.
I don't like doing that. But for me, music is my outlet.
But his sister has picked up the mantle recently,
Yeah.
and she started doing it now that their mother has
Yeah,
passed.
they're in England right now. Yeah.
It seems like O'Glegley always needs one person in the family to communicate with. So when Karen, his sister, she didn't want to do it. She wasn't doing it. She wasn't willing to learn to do it. And then Irene passed away, and in just a couple of years, she started feeling compelled to do it as well. So we think that he just started pressuring her to open communication.
Yeah, it was a very bad time, 2017. We lost almost my whole family in 3 months.
Yes, the early trauma of these experiences damaged Philip's emotional character. He was a brilliant man. He just really brilliant, but he was never emotionally stable, and he ended up not having a long relationship in any kind, and he kind of became hermit-like and miserly, and then late in life paranoid, and he ended up shooting his mother and himself and his 2 cats on his 51st birthday, killing everybody. And it just knocked the family over.
Yeah, that was like 3 months after my dad died.
Yeah, so we lost it was a terrible year. That my father passed, the dog passed, his father passed, and then the murder suicide in December that knocked everybody for a loop.
Yeah,
but I lay the blame for this squarely at the feet of these abduction phenomenons. This early trauma frequently turns into paranoia later in life. So I'm told by psychologists. So
yeah.
People think, oh, it's great, you got to be abducted by aliens. No, we don't actually recommend the experience.
No, we don't. We do not.
Did you have any questions on the early life stuff?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask where, Stephen, you were 3, 8, and 11 when you had all kinds of different things going on. Where did these happen at? What city?
That happened in Woodland Hills, California, on Fallbrook Avenue, in
a suburb of LA.
1963, 1960. 8 and 1971.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. And so we started researching after that, It's like
Well,
he started, pretty much in his.
I really started about 1991, 1992, around about the time that I was just starting to be a state licensed acupuncturist and Chinese herbal doctor here in California. There were just too many unanswered questions I had about. As an example, like I told you, my uncle, his life was saved by this O'Glegley character. He only had one daughter, and he was also a fairly wealthy guy. He was a very savvy in business. So anyway, he bought his daughter. First car he bought her was a Triumph, English white Triumph, and little sporty car there. And guess what the license plate was? You should probably be able to get this.
No idea what.
Old
O'Glegley.
Glegley.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah, he was thanking him for saving him, I think,
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
tribute.
yeah. But, my uncle had told me this story a couple different times, and my aunt, who was the older sister of my mom, she actually had tried automatic writing, but she also didn't like it. My mom was very adept at it, as were her, their parents. But Marie didn't want to do it, so my mom was the one that was doing that. So anyway, so yeah, it was if my uncle, who was a very savvy man, who was a no nonsense guy, to have a vanity plate made for his daughter O'Glegley, obviously he put a lot of credit into that experience.
And so, like, I married him. I'm 46 years old at the time, and I'm thinking to myself, I've never seen anything. I want to see something. He's seen 5. He's seen 3 UFOs by this time.
Well, you married me when you were 36, of course.
Yeah, but by then I'm 46, and I'm thinking, when am I going to see something? And I was a little jealous, to be honest. I really wanted to see something. And then, sure enough, the year I turned 46. There it was. I finally saw one. It was we were driving at night, and I was the one driving in the car, and I looked through the windshield, and there was a bright white light in the sky. And I thought maybe a plane flying into Palm Springs, but it didn't have running lights, didn't have the little blinky lights.
Yeah, I thought the same thing
at first,
time,
right?
Too. Yeah,
It was about half the brightness of Venus, say. And then it didn't behave like a plane either. It kind of cruised slowly and then stopped in front of us along the highway. And it got brighter and brighter, and I don't know if it was just us moving towards it or both of us moving towards each other. But then it took off north, over the horizon, and gone in less than a quarter of a second. It was visually so fast that it streaked out into a line that collapsed on itself.
Yeah, it was hard to gauge. We're just guessing like around about 20,000 miles per hour.
Multiple tens of thousands of miles an hour for sure, speed. And it didn't ramp up to the speed slowly. It just instantly went at full speed, gone. And that's when I realized that I finally saw my first one. It can't be anything else. A white light in the sky can be many things, but when it moves at 20,000 miles an hour and gone.
So she went from being 98% believing what I was saying to 100%.
Yeah, there was always that tiny kernel.
We saw it together. It's like, okay. Yeah, so.
But seeing is believing. And
we're going from Joshua Tree to Yucca Valley, by the way, for people who want to know.
Yeah.
In California.
January of 2005.
Okay.
And then so we started researching really from there, because I'm a journalist, and one thing we're good at is sifting large piles of data and pulling pertinent information out of it.
And I did a lot of the research, and also my family background too.
I needed his help a lot because he's got a science background that I didn't have. To read these medical journals about the human brain and the geology reports from the
I already knew a lot of it.
The asteroid impacts and stuff. So,
so how did you guys meet?
I was studying Tai Chi with him, and
I was a teacher.
Yeah, and
cool.
We started to be friends. We were married to other people at the time, so we were just friends for quite a long time. And then our marriages fell apart, and like friends sometimes do, we became closer friends.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what's it like growing up? You guys both grew up in LA, is that right? in
Yes.
that
Yeah,
in that area? I mean, have you
Hmm.
guys been around the country at all,
well,
or
we've been around
traveled a
the
lot?
world and the
Okay,
country
so
actually.
A
So
okay,
little, yeah, not much travel. I wish I was richer and I could have gone anywhere, but I've been to Europe and he's been to Africa, and we both went to Fiji.
I was actually
Mhm.
trying to set up we were trying to set up an ecotourism business
In
on the
Fiji,
outer
yeah.
islands of Fiji, kind of like two islands past where they filmed the Blue Lagoon
uh-huh.
movie with Brooke Shields. So I one of the probably the best vacation of my life I took when I was still in the military when I was 20. I just basically uh, took a vacation and just hopped a plane and just went there and lived with the natives on the outer islands. It was like going back in time 30 years.
Yeah.
There was nothing there apart from just anyway. That's a whole other story.
But
But it
where
was
we live along you may have heard of the 33rd parallel as being kind of a UFO hotspot. And I thought, I wonder if we're on the 33rd parallel. We've seen so many times. And then sure enough, I looked up and we are. And he saw two UFOs before I saw my first. And after that orange globe, he saw a USO coming up out of
oh yeah
Malibu,
yeah
the
yeah.
ocean out of Malibu. And that's a famous UFO hotspot
Actually,
too,
I
you know.
saw it at the Chart House for people that
Yeah,
want to know.
famous
I
restaurant
saw
there,
a
you know.
Chart House restaurant right off the coast of Malibu, and I was watching the Yankees playing the Boston Red Sox in the playoffs in October, and
Right.
just finished dinner, and I asked the valet to get my car, and he got the car, and just we happened to be looking out towards the ocean, and this USO came up out of the ocean, maybe about 1 or 2 miles off the coast, and kind of hovered there, and
Did
then
some
did a
weird
couple of
angular
weird
turns, you know.
angular turns, and then went up, going up north. And I said, "Did you see that?" He said, "Oh yes, sir, I saw that too. Yeah, yeah." So it's like
So we,
anyway.
we should probably get to our theories before we eat up every
Well, let's ask
all our
if they
time
if they have some other questions for us. Let's ask
Yeah,
them.
no, go
yeah,
ahead. Get on give us your
on the theory
theories.
train, huh?
Yeah, tell us who they
So
are and what they're up to.
exactly like I promised in the book, right?
That's right.
So we started doing research, and in the beginning, the UFO facts that we had, what few facts we had, were not lining up with the theories. And I kept not doing that. The more research I did, the more I couldn't make the theory that these beings are coming here from all different star systems
Yeah, we
make any
both we both
sense,
saw
right?
that. Yes.
For one thing, they're seen way too often. They're seen 10,000 times per year, every year worldwide. And we think reporting is at only about 10%. So they're really being seen 100,000 times a year.
Yeah.
So just the numbers alone were starting to look wrong. And I've read thousands of UFO sighting reports where they're seen coming up out of the earth somehow, like up out of the mountain or out of a mesa or out of a ridge or a lake or the ocean,
Right.
coming up from below. And that kept happening over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Dolan's work and Elizondo's work kind of confirms that too. As a matter of fact.
Steve had this book, Admiral Byrd's diary, his posthumously released diary, talks about his meeting with these beings that live under the ice sheet of Antarctica called the Ariani. And most people think of it as just a fairy tale that he wrote. But when in the 90s, we heard about a documentary, a Russian documentary that aired on Russian TV in 1986, I
86.
believe.
86.
It was based on a intelligence report from the 40s. And in it, Admiral Byrd, well, I have to back up. In the late 30s, Hitler was showing this bizarre interest in Antarctica that nobody could understand. He was sending massive amounts of resources there, boats and ships and workers and mining equipment and all this stuff was going down there. And so after the war, the U.S. intelligence surmised that there was a Nazi base under the ice sheet there. There was some evidence of it. One of the U-boat captains claimed that he had found a paradise under the ice for his
Führer.
for the homeland in the Führer. And so they sent Admiral Byrd in Operation High Jump with a
1947 early.
February of, and they had an armada or a carrier group is probably a better term, and they got to the Queen Maud Land coast, which is where Hitler was doing most of his exploring, and they were attacked by flying saucers that came up out of the water and shot some kind of ray at the ships and sank a destroyer and downed half of Admiral Byrd's aircraft and killed many men. And we surmise that after this, Admiral Byrd didn't want to go back to Washington and say, yeah, we were attacked by flying saucers and I know nothing about them, right? So we think that he got in his plane and flew over to the Queen Maud Land coast. And we have heard in whistleblower testimony that there is a huge hole in the Antarctic ice sheet, and it's cordoned off by a no-fly zone. America has made this no-fly zone, and but some pilot overflew because of a medical emergency. He flew over it, and apparently this hole is big enough you could fly a plane down into this.
It's several football fields in size.
So
easy.
we surmise that Admiral Byrd got in one of his planes and flew over there, and then had this meeting with the people that just kicked his ass. You know, and said, like, if somebody can kick your ass, it's time to negotiate. And so Operation High Jump left. It was a 6-month operation, and they turned tail and ran in 2 months. And in Argentine media, Byrd was quoted as saying, America can now be attacked by an enemy that can fly from pole to pole with incredible speed. Then he went back to Washington, was debriefed and muzzled. He didn't say another word about this for the entire rest of his life, except for this posthumously released diary.
This guy was an American icon. He had flown over the North Pole. He made admiral by the age of 41. A
Medal of Honor recipient.
Yeah, he was like the George Lindbergh of his.
A hero of his day.
Yeah, time, exactly.
So a man of unimpeachable character, first of all, and so then we took these 2 stories, and we applied it to our UFO data. And then suddenly everything clicked into place and started making sense. One of the weirdest things about the abduction phenomenon is they only, like 94% of people taken are Caucasian. And so we're thinking, why would space aliens care? One way, Caucasian, Hispanic, why would they care, right? So it made no sense. And we only make up 16% of the population.
That's right, only 16.
There's not like they're just taking a cross section of humanity or something. And they also are taking more Basque people. And because either they're after Rh negative blood or they're after Basques. The data shows that the Basques have the highest incident of Rh negative.
The highest, right.
And 4 out of 10 abductees are Rh negative. So,
and also too, green-eyed people too, also a very high
percentage as well.
And it's also a recessive trait.
A relatively, it's recessive trait.
And then of course all the cattle mutilations where they actually exsanguinate the cattle.
Why
are they so interested in cattle?
Whereas we surmised that the people flying the UFOs in our skies are not aliens coming here from distant star systems. We surmise that they are a breakaway branch of the human race, and that happen to be a Caucasian branch. Admiral Byrd described them as Nordic-looking men, Germanic or Nordic accents.
Right.
And
he referred to us as my son and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, and they kind of told us that what they said to Admiral Byrd is, normally we don't have anything to do with you people and your barbaric wars. They think of us kind of as barbarians. And but they had to make an exception now because we had learned to crack the atom. And they said, this is a power that you should not be playing with. You guys are not advanced enough to control this power. Exactly. Yeah, you're not mature enough to control this power. And so that makes a lot of sense to me because what they're doing now is following our military everywhere we go on maneuvers. Yes. Absolutely every single time we go out on maneuvers.
Fravor and Graves and all the people the guys at
the pilots that were
2023.
Did you see the congressional hearing where the pilots were talking about the UFOs? They as much said that, every time we go out on maneuvers, we see these things dogging us and following us. And we know that they've they've had a lot of activity at our military bases that have nuclear capabilities or nuclear research facilities.
Going back to the 60s at least.
Yeah, the Malmstrom incident is a good example of this. Malmstrom is
It's an ICBM.
the silos,
launch
yeah,
site
where the actual silos are for the launching the ICBMs.
in Montana.
It's
Yeah.
in Montana, and at one point, this UFO just parks right in front of the base entrance, and all of the systems for all of the nukes went offline, one after another, after another,
All
after
10,
another.
and they're all separate on separate systems.
Completely separate systems. So they were able to hack in pretty easily. So we think that they're, number one, they share the planet with us. They live here with us. And that's why they're so worried about our nukes, because, you know, like a space alien coming from a distant star system, why would they care if we blew ourselves up? Maybe they care a little, but enough to commit this kind of resources that we're talking about, following all the militaries of the world that have nukes.
And
anyway,
my family for 4
all over the
generations.
world,
Why,
you know. And so we started trying to look for a cause that would cause all the separation. And there's a lot of stories, ancient stories about people going underground.
Yes.
You know, there's a long list of them in our book. But we thought, well, why? Why would anyone want to go underground? And one of the things I brought to the relationship was I studied ancient art history, and I had been studying the Great Flood, the possibility that the Great Flood was real and really did happen. At the time in college, there was a man named Fraser who wrote a book in the 1800s that I'd read in college, rather. He had tracked down 500 separate flood myths from 500 separate cultures all around the world that have a Noah story in their ancient lore. And since that time, more have been discovered. So there's actually like 1,200 separate Noah stories in different cultures all around the world, pointing to a shared common event of some kind. And scientists and me behind them started researching the idea that it happened during 13,000 years ago, the Great Flood, because we were showing evidence of a celestial impact back then. There was
diamonds.
Yeah, there was a mini extinction event in North America 13,000 years ago. We lost the mastodon and the mammoth.
They were mostly wiped out, yes.
And the saber-toothed cat and the dire wolf. A lot of animals went extinct about the same time. And the Clovis people of North America also disappeared. And it was a long time. People made up, crazy ideas about how they were wiped out or why they disappeared. But then we discovered nanodiamonds inside the 13-year-old soil.
13,000-year-old
13,000-year-old soil, I'm sorry. Nanodiamonds are little round diamonds that only form in celestial impacts of some kind, like a meteor or whatever brings dust particles into the atmosphere with it, and they superheat and form these little round diamonds. And so we knew a celestial impact of some kind. At first we thought it was the Hiawatha asteroid crater was maybe the culprit,
in Greenland. Yeah.
But it turned out to be just 900 miles west is the impact zone for the Younger Dryas comet. And that was dated recently to 12,850 years ago. So now we know what happened. And we think that the cultures of the world prior to this were more advanced than we give them credit for.
That's for sure.
But the Younger Dryas was such a extinction level event, a catastrophe of a huge magnitude. We're talking about 2,000-foot tsunamis heading to every coastline in the world all at the same time.
In the Northern Hemisphere.
Well, all over the world as far as tsunamis. They travel everywhere, but, of course, the worst of it was in the Northern Hemisphere where it struck. It struck roughly at Lake Superior, where Lake Superior is now. But at the time, there was an ice sheet. We were just coming out of an ice age. And it struck the ice sheet and vaporized so much ice into vapor up in the air that came down as rain that it actually kind of shoved us back into it reversed course and shoved us back into the ice age.
Yeah, we know that there was 1,100 years after that.
huge
Young-
climate
yes.
upheavals
Yeah, we
for
went back
about
into an ice
1,000
age.
years after.
But the interesting way, when a comet comes through the atmosphere at about 40,000 miles an hour, a comet is basically a dirty snowball. And this one was 62 miles
Across.
or like 100 kilometers. So it comes through about 40,000 K, right? It starts to break apart. And that's why all the forests in the Uccello layer, which is an inch thick, all the forests in
Northern
in the
hemisphere.
northern hemisphere in 10 different countries were on fire at the same time.
They cause these air bursts that
bursts.
ignite the
So we know that
fires.
it happened.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. We know that it happened.
And so that, to me, that's a really, really good reason to move a large population underground, right? It's like the Deep Impact movies, where, did you guys see the Deep Impact movies? The movie that where
Morgan Freeman's
President Morgan Freeman. They had two plans, right? Plan A was the Hollywood heroes would fly off and destroy the incoming asteroid. But plan B was to sink these deep underground, what they called arcs in the movie, like bunkers underground. And they were going to be able to house like 50,000 of our brightest and best. And we believe they took cattle and other animals of man with them. And that's why they're abducting people now, is they happen to be a branch of the Caucasian race. That's why they're focusing on Caucasians. Aliens would have hardly any use for human Caucasian DNA, but a branch of Caucasian DNA, of humanity that happened to be Caucasian, they would have all kinds of uses for it, maybe, right? And we think they might have becoming non-viable living underground for so long, and their population might need regular infusions of DNA from surface creatures like us and our cattle.
Like the mythos of the vampires, it's really the chicken or the egg,
coming at night, stealing
powerful.
DNA,
yeah.
and they can paralyze you, and
they steal your DNA and your chain. So.
We think a lot of the vampire mythos comes from the alien abduction phenomenon.
Anyway,
so there you have it. They're us. They're living underground and hollowing out mountains, and they are flying in our skies, following our nuclear weapons, making sure we don't blow up the planet and them.
So do you think that's only where they're at? Just here? Do you think they're?
Oh no.
Oh, good
so
question.
here I've always had this thought about
the moon.
The moon.
Yeah,
that
sure.
maybe that there's things that inhabit the moon.
Sure, of course.
I was driving to work this morning and I'm looking at the full moon and it's glowing. It's glowing. I'm like,
yeah.
that is not from the sun. That moon is not glowing from the sun. What is making that moon glow?
Well, we do think there might be bases on the moon.
On the backside, of course.
Yeah,
dark side.
And also, there's a structure on Mars's moon called Phobos. There's a weird tower structure and this probe was getting closer to it. Oh, look at this weird tower structure. And then a shot comes at the probe and blows it up, and that's the last thing it sees, right? So we think they have a base there, and we think they might be even bases on Mars. There's these photographs coming back of, like roads and entrances.
We're pretty darn sure they have some structures on the moon.
Yeah,
that's what we're pretty darn sure about.
So in that one way, they are kind of extraterrestrial in that maybe some of them come from these bases around our solar system, but we don't think they're coming here from distant star systems.
Yeah, well, it's the interdimensional stuff is, what would be their, let's say if they're light beings and that kind of stuff, what would be their interest? It's the means, opportunity, and motive, the mom theorem. What would be their interest in cow blood? If they're light beings and they're a million years ahead of us. Kaku talks about that.
Yeah.
The astrophysicist Kaku says that we're not even we're not even a stage 2 civilization yet. You're talking about light beings. You're talking about a stage 4 or 5. And what would the interest be in like cattle?
And these creatures seem like they are about 13,000 years ahead of us. Because they didn't lose their technology, whereas us poor schmoes that were left on the surface, we died in droves. And
there was a genetic bottleneck too.
Of about 10,000 people.
That's the other thing, the other hard fact we found too.
Right.
About 13,000 years ago, we were reduced. Now we have CRISPR technology and we cracked the human genome and all that kind of stuff. work with DNA. We know that at that time that the human population on the surface of the earth was reduced to about 10,000 surface dwellers. So all these things are starting to line up.
Yeah.
It's just
Starting to
like
make sense.
follow the facts. That's what we were doing.
And there's
Following
all
the
these,
facts.
like I say, all
Well,
these, things.
He has a question for us.
Okay, sorry.
Well, you were talking about the cattle mutilation and stuff, and I think they're probably just taking that stuff for the DNA
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
for
They're not
because
taking the whole cow.
they know that eventually we're going to kill ourselves off, and they're going to have to repopulate the surface.
In fact, that's one of the things they said to
if we
Admiral
nuke
Byrd.
everything,
Yep.
In fact, one of the things they said to Admiral Byrd that we will protect you.
And preserve the flower of your race. There's much telling us another reason why they're abducting us. I think sometimes they're abducting people and not putting them back. Like they're keeping us just in case
Probably.
we blow up the planet. You know what I mean? A lot of these
They-
disappearances,
yeah,
especially
and who
Alaska,
knows,
which
it's
is
probably going to happen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes, I agree with you.
And I feel comforted to know that we have them like trying to keep us from doing it. That'd be nice.
Yeah, but they're I think they're taking
save
a
us,
little bit,
save us
a
from
little bit.
ourselves.
Yeah, they're doing a. If their goal was to either to reintegrate with us or to take us over, either way, there's 8 billion of us, and they're doing a pretty slow or poor job of it. I think the
They're
human
patient,
I think that the human race on the surface is almost, the way I see it, we're almost like an experiment that got out of control, and they didn't realize that that we just got that we would like do what we're doing. And they are more advanced than we are as far as like spiritually, from what I can tell. They don't have all this like fear and anger and terror and all this crap that we're dealing with, and they're more advanced. And it says, well, they probably can't really understand why we are so hostile. And I can tell you for a fact that they do know telepathy. Telepathy
Right.
is an ability that human beings have that precedes language by far, and that has been proven.
We think it is a human birthright,
Exactly. For
but
instance,
it's atrophied in us now.
yeah, the way I always talk about it, there's about 10,000 different languages on the planet, right? So whatever language you're talking about, if you say the word, whatever language, say the word tree, the first thing you don't think about is like how to spell the word tree, whatever language it is. You see a picture of a tree.
In your mind,
That's
yeah.
a part of the brain that encodes using, basically encoding using chemical pathways to basically lay down that pathway that this is what a tree. It might be an oak tree, it might be a cedar tree, it might be whatever it may be. So that's why the earliest languages are pictographic. They're not. English is like 5 or 6 generations away from the original languages, cuneiform, ideographic languages. So we don't think in those terms. That's why they use telepathy. They can communicate with anybody,
And then all these flood myths, almost all of them, almost all end the same way as they all start the same way, in that everybody is warned somehow. Like God warned us, or an emissary of God warned us that a horrible flood is coming, and you all better build an ark, or some, or get to high ground, or dig in underground. But they almost all end the same way too, and that's that humanity, after the flood, we became more barbarous and more cannibal. We started reverting to cannibalism, and it looked like we were going to die out. That we might just get snuffed out. And we think that they need us and know that they need us. So we think all these flood myths, they talk about a teacher coming back to man who arrives like in a flying vehicle and lands and is treated like a god, and that brings back civilization to man, teaches them math and how to grow crops,
animal husbandry,
and build buildings and architecture. And then these teachers disappear. We think that they were worried that we were about to get snuffed out, and they decided to send emissaries to set themselves up as gods and to kind of pull us out, back out of the dark ages into more of a civilization again. And So that's where this thing is, where there's all these bizarre structures from about 5,000 years ago that
Further
are
than that, too.
and all and between 10 and 5,000 years, really, that are attributed to people that cannot have built them, absolutely can't have done it, you know. For instance, the Great Pyramids, they attributing them to these copper-based individuals of the 4,000 years ago, copper tools. And the Great Pyramid, the main chamber is lined with rose quartz, a 7 on the Mohs scale. A copper tool, you could bang it all day on that, and it's only going to wreck the tool.
Rose
You know,
granite, actually, it's rose granite
yeah.
and andesite.
So it's a very hard rock that you know, it's cut to incredible precision. You know, and they with the tools they had, they couldn't have even carved it
Yeah,
out at
yeah,
all.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
the structures at Sacsayhuaman and Machu Picchu
And
and
Pumapunku.
Pumapunku, they're most of them are built with andesite. Again, another very hard rock, like 7, again a 7 on the Mohs
On the
scale.
Mohs scale, correct.
And they were bronze tool users, and the same problem. Bronze is a little better than copper, but still just not adequate to
No.
the task.
We would have a hell of a time replicating, even with our technology today. And we've talked to people that say, no, this is, and it really at 12,000 foot elevation, you know, and you're
Yeah,
going to be doing this kind of stuff where you
above
have
the tree line where we can
yeah.
barely breathe, you know, let
So yeah,
alone move
a lot of
200
things
ton
don't
blocks.
they just don't add up. They just don't add up.
And so that's where we came up with our theory, was that they're us, they're living underground, they've been around for thousands of years. We see evidence of them going back thousands of years.
And it's a lot safer to live underground. I can tell you, as being
Yeah.
a cave explorer, one of my 20s, that you don't feel earthquakes underground. And you know, what we found in our book too, with our research, we devoted a whole chapter to just how frequently celestial impact events have happened that we know of.
Yeah.
And they're a lot more frequent than people that we give credit to.
Right.
I mean, you know, you look at Tunguska back in like 1910 or 1914.
06, actually.
Yeah,
Mhm.
was 06, whatever.
Yes.
And that's, you know, it's like, okay, that's within like just over 100 years, and these things happen pretty frequently.
Right.
And they're
There was
pretty
one
big.
in the Indian Ocean impact crater they've discovered, about 5,000 years old. And of course, the big pit in Arizona, the giant crater, that was 50,000.
50,000 years. Yeah, so they happen pretty often.
And the Lornar crater in India is also a 50,000-year-old, they think. So,
and then, of course, the one in Lake Superior area, which is
that's
12,850.
So we think maybe in our long history prior to the cataclysm, we think we might have risen and fallen as a civilization more than once, because you know, Homo sapien, people just as smart as us, were around about 120,000 years ago, at least, we know by then.
Yeah, we know that, you know, for sure.
Some people argue earlier, but we know for sure by 120,000 years. And then supposedly mainstream archaeology would have us believe that we sat around for 107,000 years not inventing anything or advancing in any way. And then just 13,000 years ago decided to get some gumption and build stuff again, you know.
Make a cup.
We think that we actually rose to a pretty high level of civilization prior to the impact, the comet impact, but the comet impact wiped everything out. It just scraped the evidence of that society right off the planet.
The vast majority of it, at least. Yeah.
And except leaving us some of these bizarre structures that make no sense, you know. From we know almost nothing about ourselves prior to 13,000 years ago. Basically our history starts then, and anything you want to know prior to that, you have to look at archaeology for.
Wow, that's crazy, deep, and very interesting. I mean, it opens up so much questions and things in my mind. I mean, sometimes I wonder if, aliens are angels and they're the ones that created us through God. And, I don't know if you want to look at it in a spiritual way, or why are they here? They're monitoring us for some reason, right? And we
Right.
talked about, you guys talked about, civilizations come and gone a couple times. There used to be, like, if you read the Bible or whatever, I think humans used to be a lot bigger, like giants, giant
There
sized.
were giants too,
And I'm
and
not talking like Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I'm talking like, super tall, like the 14, 15 foot, 20-foot skeletons that
Yeah.
they've talked about finding. So maybe whatever's put us here has tried a couple times and not gotten it right. And maybe these aliens are watching us or helping monitor us, or who knows.
well,
Or
remember, they're not aliens. We think they're us. And so remember,
We
in the
call 'em-
Bible,
Okay.
the
we
Watchers,
call them cousins.
like it's actually not in the Bible. I'm sorry. In the book of Enoch, he talks about these
Yep.
Watchers that can, who watch us, and there's like 200 of them, and they come to Earth, supposedly like they're angels that come to Earth, but
Mhm.
instantly take wives and start having kids. So they're us. If you're having sex and you're having kids, it's us.
They're having giant
know,
babies.
It can't be anything else.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, tell us again where we can get your book and your document, where we can see your documentary at.
Oh, yes, we forgot about the documentary, didn't we? In the beginning. Yes, it just dropped on YouTube about 12 days ago or so.
Right.
And it's called Who They Are. Just like our book is Who They Are and What They're Up To. It's just Who They Are. You type that into the search of YouTube, it comes right up.
It's
Okay.
had 311,000 views so far.
I know, we're so excited
Wow.
about the
Wow.
response. I know.
We hit
Awesome, you guys.
250 after 8 days. So
Nice.
it totally
Well,
caught
Well,
us off
hopefully
guard.
after this drops, you'll get even more.
Exactly.
I hope so. Thank you so
It's
much
exciting for sure. It's exciting.
for the chance to talk about it. And
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I have not had a chance to watch it yet, and I'm going to check it out
Either,
for
but
sure.
I'm going to.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
about the religious aspect of it, the ancient Sumerians have a lot of stories that you find later in the Bible, different versions in the Bible. So I think a lot of the stories in our religions come from these people as well, setting themselves up as gods and kind of managing us for a while. And, it'd be easy to set yourself up as a god if you had 13,000 years more advanced technology, it'd
Oh,
be
sure.
easy.
Yeah.
There's the tales of Huang Di, the yellow emperor, the first emperor of China,
Yep.
coming down to Earth in a fiery dragon.
Flying
I mean,
dragon.
my being an
Yeah.
acupuncturist for 20 years and studying the stuff, going to school and becoming state licensed, and I read all about this type of stuff. And you keep on hearing the same stuff. Somebody came down, a god or godlike creature came down in
In a rocket.
fiery, in like a rocket powered
Using
fiery
good old
chariot.
rocketry, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
and like one thing I love about our theories is that it doesn't require any theoretical physics for our theory to work. It doesn't require faster than light travel or wormholes or interdimensional travel or time travel. And we know they open portals and walk through them, and maybe that is interdimensional travel. We don't know, but it's not required for our theory to function.
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
We don't dismiss it. We also don't dismiss the thing about angels and being there's better and worse people. I mean, if we are made in the image of our creators, well, there's greed, gluttony, lust, vanity, pride, wrath, and sloth, right? So if we're dealing with it, probably they had to deal with it, and maybe they're still dealing with it too. Maybe they are better and worse iterations of them too. Maybe some of them just like to screw around with us. And
Well, and playing false gods is, a bad thing. But, of course, so there's the real God who created everybody and everything. And then there's these guys pretending to be gods to kind of manage our society for us. And
yeah,
frequently they came in pantheons of 12.
always.
The ancient Egyptians had a pantheon of 12, the Canaanites, the ancient Greeks,
The Romans,
all of these pantheons of 12, like 12 members of a
Babylonians.
family that
Like the disciples.
came back to this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
12, 12, 12, 12, 12. And
Hmm.
the ancient Sumerian number system is based on 60, which of course divides by 12. And so it's kind of makes sense in that way
Kind
as
of blows
well.
your mind when you really think about it.
Yeah. And we've only talked about the first half of the book. The second half of the book answers the question: are aliens involved at all?
Yeah.
And we do think they are, but you'll have to read the book to get that
We'll
answer.
have to get the book, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to give everything away. That's for
Yeah.
sure, right?
That's for sure. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But I hope I've answered who they are and what they're doing. You know what they're up to.
That's right.
That's
You
our
get that
take
on
on it.
Amazon, and you said you can order the hard copy where, or the soft
Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
Amazon
on
is
Amazon.
the best.
Okay.
Yeah. Ingram is only really for people that
Well,
own
bookstores
for
mostly use
bookstores,
it. Yeah. So,
Okay. Well, Leslie and Stephen, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. It was great
Thanks.
talking to
It
you
was
guys.
awesome.
And
That
Oh,
was.
thank you.
I'm sorry
Sure,
we
definitely
gotta look into this.
dominated the conversation.
Oh,
so
no, that's
Oh,
all
that's
right.
all right. That's all right.
That's about you, not us. So
Thank
That's
you.
right.
we're glad you got to
Yeah.
get
If
everything
you have
out
any
there.
further questions, feel free to shoot us, questions
Yeah.
via, our Gmail or whatever. That's fine
Sure,
too.
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right, great.
We'll be in touch, and then
Absolutely.
maybe we'll bring you guys back on another time down the road, and we can talk more about
So we got
You,
more to
you
talk
wouldn't
about.
be the
costume theories in your
you
book.
wouldn't be the first to ask
Maybe
us.
the second half of the book, then we'll
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get the
There you
other
go.
parts.
By that time, a lot of people will read it, so
Yep.
Yeah.
we can discuss the whole thing.
absolutely.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
All right.
Thank
Thanks, you
you.
guys.
Thank you, guys. That was fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone at home.
Yep.
Namaste. Bye bye.
Take care.
You too.